Yo, it's Arcade and today we're gonna make some aggressive funk. If you don't know what funk is, it's like a very distorted, high-paced genre, unless you're talking about chill funk, which we're also gonna include in this track. So let's get started. Also, this video is brought to you by Skillshare, more on that later. So to get this started, let's set the BPM to 118. Now you can go with faster or slower, it really depends on what kind of track you are looking to make, but I'm going for house beat funk, so 118 is pretty good. If you want more of a trap vibe, you can do that also, but make sure your BPM is higher. So the most iconic sound in funk music is this cowbell. But we're gonna talk about that later. First, let's get started with the drums. So for the kick, I'm using this future bass hip hop kick. Even though it's a house beat that I have here, you wanna go with like chest kicks and stomp kicks, something with a lot of knock to it, you know? Then we have a simple hi-hat. Really simple, closed hi-hat works the best. And then a snare. I pitched it down. So then we have this simple rhythm. But that's not it, because in funk music, you want a lot of distortion. So that's why I put the kick on channel 1 and the snare as well. And then we put Fruity Wave Shaper in here and just boost it like this. Then we have this. So pretty distorted, but that's not a problem in funk music. You actually want that distortion in there. So once we have this simple beat, let's just put it in here. Now let's move on to the bass. I'm using this one in FL Studio from Flex. By the way, FL Studio is on sale, so check it out in the link below. You can get a huge Black Friday discount. But here's the bass. I'm using this 808 driven from the Mobile Tune 808s, which you can get for free in Flex, I'm pretty sure. And here's how it sounds. That's not it. Once again, a lot of distortion. I actually played around with the crush, saturate and drive to get this sound. But of course, that's not enough. So another thing I added is wave shaper once again. So I boosted it like this, but then I added another wave shaper, right click to make a point here and shaped it like this. Now the bass sounds like this. Which is super distorted, but it actually works really well in the song. Now don't forget to sidechain this. I already have it sidechained with kickstart over here. That means every time the kick hits, the volume of the bass is lowered. So this is how it looks. Without the sidechain, it would be like this. So you want this pumping effect, essentially. You can do sidechaining in gross beat as well. If you go to gross beat, you go to presets, repeater, and then you choose sidechain A, for example. So you can do that as well and adjust it if needed. But I'm using kickstart here. So for the melody, I just went with a pretty simple bass line over here. You know, you want to repeat the same idea over and over so the listener feels the high pace of the song. But then to make this bass a little different, and a pro tip here is use some white noise. So I have a 3x oscillator here. I set all of these to this one, which results in this sound. Again, it's sidechained. So yeah, that's all it is, but I actually put some effects on it. This plugin called Distractor from FL Studio, which is a really cool distortion plugin. And I enable the distortion, change it to Crusher and set it up like this. And also enable the speaker on Combo 5, set it up like this. Then we have this white noise. And with the bass, it actually creates a nice effect. So this is the bass without it. And this is the bass with it. I know it doesn't sound great by itself, but together in the whole song, it actually gets lost and sounds really good. So here is the drums with the bass. Now let's introduce the cowbell that everybody probably wants to hear about. So where do you get the cowbell sound? You actually get it in FL Studio. So just go to Packs, Legacy, Drums, Vintage, and it's this VTCB, Vintage Cowbell. So yeah, that's the signature sound of funk. Once again, I sidechained it, and we can use it in many different ways. One of the ways to use it is to use it more like a bass instead of like a melody. So you open it up and you use the lower notes in the piano roll. So here, I pretty much have the same melody as the bass, except this note, but here's how it sounds. So, you know, you have this to sort of build that tension. So this is like the low melody. And now for the effects, I actually have quite a bit of effects on this sound. First, I have transient processor set up like this. That means the release of the sound, so whatever comes after the first hit of the sound, is sort of compressed, so the sound plays a little bit longer. So then we have sound goodizer, which just sort of compresses some of the high frequencies and makes the sound fuller. Then I also boosted the high frequencies quite a bit. So definitely do that. Then we have some reverb, just a pretty basic reverb. Then stereo shaper, which changes the sound so it's not in the middle of the mix, but it's to the side of the mix. So without it, it's like this. It's in the middle. And with it, it's in the side of the mix. That makes a huge difference. And then we have an extra reverb here with some pre-delay. So it means the reverb starts playing 115 milliseconds after the sound plays. So here is it without it. And here is it with it. Once again, this makes the sound a bit bigger and almost makes it seem like it plays a bit longer. Okay, so that's the effects. Then we can put it in here and start with a beat like this. Of course, the bass sounds a bit weird because of the white noise. Once we get all the other sounds in there, it's gonna sound better. Okay, now if you would like to learn more about music production and take your skills to the next level, check out our sponsor today, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is a platform where you can learn a wide variety of new skills. It can also be very useful for music producers. There is tons of classes on music production, music theory, and these classes explain everything in detail. Whether you want to get more streams on Spotify, learn how to play the piano, or learn more about FL Studio, Skillshare has it all. I know that a lot of people struggle with music theory and creating melodies and chords, and that's why I would recommend this class by Fernando Arruda, Music Theory, Exploring Sound, Rhythm and Melody on the MIDI Grid. Now this class is super useful for anyone who wants to learn more about music theory but doesn't have a piano. That's why in this class everything is explained on a MIDI Grid. So all you need is your DAW, for example FL Studio, and by the end of this class you'll be able to make chords and melodies very easily. There's actually more than 5 hours worth of content in this class, and I think for music producers, learning music theory on the MIDI Grid is actually the best way to do it. So if you want to check out this class or any other class on Skillshare, use the link in the description below. The first 1,000 people who use the link below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. That means you'll receive unlimited access to thousands of classes for a whole month. So check it out, link is below. Now let's get back to the video. And we are back. Now let's talk about the other supporting sounds before we go to the melody, because the supporting sounds are probably way more important than the melody. You can switch this up, but I used brass and choir. I have this brass hit. Once again, it's sidechained, everything is sidechained. So this brass hit is in the key of D, so to set it up, just go here and right click on D. So the root note is set to D, then whatever you play in piano roll will actually be what the brass hit is playing, otherwise you will be off key. So make sure to set it up. Usually sample packs come with the keys, so it's really simple. So here's the brass hit. I actually put some reverb on it as well, this much. Then we have the same melody as the other lower sound. So it sort of follows the bass. I just add this extra note. So you want this supporting sound, and then we have the choir, which is really exciting because the sound, I actually put so many effects on it to completely change it, and I think it's a really cool sound. So here's the choir. It's actually from Flex as well, from General MIDI Library, so you can get it as well if you are using FL Studio, which you should be. If not, you know, it's on sale now. But if you are, then you have this choir. And that's not it. This choir. Really basic choir, and this is the chords I created with it. So once again, it's the same as the bass in the other sounds, but this time I added some more notes, like 1 octave higher. So, you know, just repeat the same notes, but 1 octave higher as well. So D4, D5, and I have this one in here, just so the chord is fuller in that moment. So here's how it sounds without the effects. And I think the effects in this type of music are really important. You want to hit it with a lot of distortion. How much distortion? Yes. So the first effect is a distractor. You just open up distractor and it's this default preset. Just turn off the chorus. Then we have this. So a way deeper choir sound now. More distorted, more in the background, which I wanted. But I felt like it's too muddy. So I added some more high frequencies back in. And then some reverb as well, quite a bit. Set up like this, lower the dryness so it's more in the background. Yeah, I'm using Fruity Reverb 1. Nobody uses it anymore, but I still love it. So that's our choir sound now. Here is it with the brass. And here it is with the rest of the sounds. It it's hard. So that's our base of the song. That's the most important thing, to get this right, and then we can add the melodies and the vocal, of course. Speaking of vocal, let's take a look at that. So here is my vocal. First, here it is with no effects.
Cold, these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die.
Well, obviously it's sidechained, which is unusual for vocals. We thought it is like this.
Cold, these brothers my guys.
But I want this pumping effect throughout the whole song, so it's sidechained as well.
Cold, these brothers my guys.
Then we have to put some effects on it to sort of put it in the background and have like this speaker effect almost. So without the effects, it's like this.
Cold, these brothers my guys.
And then we add this tractor, which I use a lot in this song. And here's how I set it up. I set up the distortion on crusher mode, set it up like this. Then the filter, lower the cutoff a little bit so it's more in the background. And then the speaker effect on combo 13. That creates this, you know, like it's through a phone or something like that.
Cold, these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die.
Then I added some EQ, boosted the mid frequencies and a bit of the high frequencies as well, and deleted the low frequencies altogether.
Cold, these brothers my guys.
Then sound goodizer to make the vocal pop a lot more.
Cold, these brothers my guys, know that they fly.
Then stereo shaper, as I said before, so the vocal is not in the middle of the mix, but it's on the sides of the mix. And I use the Stereoize 2 preset here.
Cold, these brothers my guys, know that they fly.
And then we have some reverb on it as well.
These brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die.
And here is how it sounds with the rest of the track.
These brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die.
And the next sound that we're gonna use is the melody, finally. So let me just extend this, and before we continue, just add this crash in here as well. You know, but yeah, in this part, I'm gonna remove the vocal and the chorus sound, so we have a more of a simple beat going. And there we're gonna add the melody. So you can add the melody with the vocal and the core or whatever other sounds you have, but sometimes it's better to sort of subtract some of the sounds to add different sounds. But now let's check the melody. Obviously I'm using this sound, the Cowbell from FL Studio in Legacy Drums Vintage Cowbell. And here's it with the effects. I talked about these effects in the beginning, so if you skipped, go check that. It's the same effects as the Cowbell in the lower keys. So here's the melody, and it's not even like a melody. You just sort of put some notes in some rhythm, and call it a melody. But here it is anyways. This is how it sounds. So an important thing to note here is the question and answer in the melodies. What I mean by that is this is the question and this is the answer. So what I mean by that is you want to have a variation in the melody that sort of tells the listener that this is the first part and this is the second part, right? So here the notes go up and here the notes go down. So that's sort of the question and answer in the melody. In the second repetition, once again, this is the question and this is the answer. These three notes repeat all the time here. The only difference is these last four notes, or however many. You always want to make a variation in those, so the melody keeps moving and closing. That's how you make sure the melody flows really nicely. So here's how it sounds in the track. And that's almost it, but I also wanted to make a beat switch to sort of slow the whole thing down. So let's take a look at that. But before we do, I want to show you the arrangement. So I have it prepared already. So we start really simple with the vocal and this half melody almost. And then these lower notes. So this is just to sort of prepare the listener. And then I have this car pass sound, also from Flex. Because funk music is also connected to like drifting and cars. And then we have the drop right away. No build up, no nothing. And then obviously we turn off the choir and add the melody. So that's what we have. Now for the beat switch, you want to sort of lower the BPM. So how do you do that? You right click your BPM and create automation clip. Ideally, you select the part where you want to lower it down first by holding Control, dragging it, and then, right click, create automation clip. And then here is my automation clip for that. Now to set the BPM to a specific number from 118 to 95, you just pretty much go anywhere in the song and just move your BPM to 95. Cancel this, right click on it, copy value, and then right click on the point in the tempo automation where you want to paste it and just paste the value. And then you're going to start on 118 and end on 95. So here's my beat switch. I don't know if it's a beat switch, if the drum beat stays the same, but pretty much the drum beat stays the same, apart from the fact that I go to the kick and lowered the mod X. So what that does is kick is like this first, but then when you lower the mod X, you sort of filter it down to a more deep kick. And I also added reverb on the clap. That's pretty much what chill means in Phonk. And then I changed the whole bass melody as well. I choose a different bass here, this one called Drone Neverland. But you can use the bass from before as well. Anyway, so this is the bass. So a complete different bass line than before. I stay on D, of course, the same key. If you want help with the key, you can just go to View, Scale Highlighting, Automatic, and you can see you are in D minor in the left corner. You can also see DJ Funky. The highlighted notes here are the ones that you can use to stay in this key. So that's my bass. I also change this sound to pretty much the same thing as the bass, but it just doesn't have this ending in there. But yeah, I slowed everything down. And then the same goes for the brass. So the bass is like this, but as you can hear, the brass doesn't sound good in these frequencies. So what you can do in this case, if any sound doesn't sound great in certain frequencies, you can just select those notes and press Ctrl arrow down to make them go octave down. It's still the same notes, just octave lower, where they sound better. And the same goes for the choir. Effects are the same, the vocal is the same, but that's pretty much the beat switch right there. That actually concludes the whole song, so let's have a listen to the finished result. And that is it for this video. Make sure to check out Skillshare, link is below in the description. And also check out FL Studio, it's on sale right now. But other than that, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!